Good evening, and welcome to a meeting of the Chesapeake School Board. A printed agenda is available in the back of the room if you wish to follow the business items we'll be discussing this evening. Roll call, Dr. Smith.
Mr. Elijah Colon,
Here.
Miss Amanda Dean,
Ms. Dean is absent this evening.
Miss Malia Huddle,
Here.
Mr. Michael Lemonia,
Here.
Mr. John McCormick,
Here.
Mr. Norman Poole,
Here.
Dr. Brittany Walker,
Dr. Walker is absent this evening.
Mrs. Kim Scott, Vice Chair,
Here.
Mrs. Angie Swigert, Chair.
Here. The next item is the adoption of the agenda. Does the superintendent or any board member wish to add or delete an item from the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No items to add to the agenda, but we will need a closed session for personnel matters, student disciplinary matters, and legal matters.
I'll entertain. Motion made by Mr. Lemonia. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Poole. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We will now go into the closed portion of our meeting. I'll ask Vice Chair Scott to read the language to take us into closed session.
Yes, Chair Swigert, I move that the board should convene in closed session pursuant to the Code of Virginia, Sections 2.2-3711, subsections A, 1, 2, and 8, for discussion and consideration of personnel matters to include contracts for specific employees, student disciplinary matters, and consultation with legal counsel in reference to actual litigation.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lemonia. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
Before we move into closed session, and in accordance with Bylaw 2-33, we will need a motion to approve the remote participation of Sands Anderson attorneys Nikki Chook and Faith Alejandro, who will join us for discussion in closed session. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Colon. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We are now in closed session. Vice Chair Scott, would you please read the statement to bring us back into open session?
Yes, Chair Swigert, I move that the record shows that the only items discussed in the closed meeting were those specifically cited in the motion to convene into the closed meeting and those lawfully exempted from statutory meeting requirements.
Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Lemonia. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
Dr. Cotton, do you have any items resulting from closed session?
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. We just have one motion. I recommend that student number 1 be expelled with educational services as discussed.
I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. Poole. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
If there are no additional items from closed session, we will move on to the invocation and pledge of allegiance. At this time, I'll call upon Pastor Blake LaRussa from River Oak Church to provide tonight's invocation. Afterward, I'll ask Jada Johnson, a 5th grade student from Carver Intermediate School, to lead us in the pledge. Please stand as you are able.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us this time to gather together to discuss matters that are important to you and us in this community. God, first, we thank you so much for each member on the school board and for all those behind the scenes who work really hard and serve their communities faithfully. God, we ask you to bless them, to bless their families, to give them wisdom and guidance, Lord, as they serve in these ways that you've given them the ability to do so. God, we thank you so much for what you've done for us in Jesus. Thank you, Jesus, for living a perfect life and for going to the cross to pay the price for sin and for conquering the grave 3 days later. Lord, I pray that what you have done would drive us and fuel us to serve you and to serve others, to love you, to love those around us, God. We ask you to bless this meeting, God. We ask you to give us guidance, give us wisdom, and may you be glorified in it all. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Jada, and to Pastor LaRussa for being here with us tonight. And we also certainly want to thank your principal, Dr. Brusso, and your teacher for being here with us as well. We will now move on to awards and recognitions. The first item under awards and recognitions this evening is the School Board Appreciation Month. Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. It is School Board Appreciation Month. February, as we've told you before, is time for us to honor our school board members. We have several gifts provided for you here tonight. At your place this evening, you'll find a certificate from the Virginia School Boards Association in recognition of your service to our schools and community. You'll also find personalized nameplates and badges that are provided by our very own print shop. So hopefully you'll display those with pride. I see some of you are already wearing your badges. So that's great. We appreciate your dedication and service, and we are happy to honor each of you this evening. Certainly have a great month. You deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cotton. The next item on our agenda for awards and recognitions is School Board Clerk Appreciation Week. I can certainly say on behalf of the board that having a week to celebrate our board clerk and our deputy board clerk feels like nowhere near enough. We do have a gift for both of you, and I just want to say that, we certainly would be a big mess without you both, and we appreciate everything that you both do to keep us straight and to help us do everything that we need to do. So thank you so much. We appreciate you, and we hope that you have a good week. We will now move on to the hearing of citizens. During their allotted time, speakers should observe our rules of decorum and know that expressions of concerns and criticisms on matters of school policy and operations is welcome. While the speaker's own comments are welcome, they may not play pre-recorded messages. Dr. Smith, are there any citizens who have requested time to speak this evening?
Yes, Chair Swigert, we have 2 citizens requesting to speak.
I want to thank the 2 speakers who have signed up to address the board this evening. As a reminder, there are 2 ways that citizens can request time to speak at our meetings. You can call the clerk's office before 12 noon the day of the meeting, or sign up to speak prior to the start of the meeting in person. All in-person requests to speak must be submitted to the deputy clerk 5 minutes prior to the published meeting start time. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Once your allotted time is over, we ask that you promptly exit the podium. You may choose to sit in the boardroom if seats are available, but standing or sitting on the floor will not be permitted, and you may not block the exit doors. We would also like to ask that you refrain from any behavior that disrupts the meeting, including the use of profanity, applause, cheering, or jeering. Dr. Smith, please call the first speaker.
Speaker number 1, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Madam Chair, school board members, as most of us are aware, the wheels on the bus do in fact go round and round, round and round. But myself and others in my section of the city have grown increasingly concerned that there may be some issues with them doing so all through the town. Late last year, I relayed some of these concerns to the Director of Transportation. It's certainly a multifaceted issue, but ultimately, we hope to address students who rely on bus transportation to and from school, especially those in certain communities, and how they could be better served. After some considerable waiting, Dr. Benson and I were able to connect to discuss the issue. It was clear to me from the outset that the dialogue may also need to include folks from other departments. I suggested the attendance-related aspect should be directed to the appropriate department for follow-up. He and I seemed in agreement, so I waited and waited and waited some more. 2 months later, I received a phone call from the Director of Attendance, Enrollment, and Health Services, who all but told me to mind my own business and insisted I should have directed my concerns to my child's high school administrator. As I attempted to explain, I chose my child as an example of a pervasive issue because I have immediate access to her attendance records. Contrary to her response at the time, I can literally see the inaccuracies. There is certainly something amiss in attendance data reporting when a student accumulates this many tardy slips, which I file with the clerk, and those tardy slips are not reflected in the actual record. There are other discussions being had about how pre-K learners are and are not counted, how those stuck in portables are and are not counted, so maybe math isn't the strongest skill among some of these folks. So let's do some quick math together. Please consider that my child walks 4 blocks to a bus stop as opposed to 1 block from our house, because the lost instructional time would be even greater if she didn't. Averaging 5 minutes per tardy, which is a conservative estimate by each of the 49 tardy slips I've handed up to you. That equals 245 minutes, which equates to over 4 hours of missed instruction. Now multiply that figure by the number of students in similar situations. That figure is at best untenable. Arguably, it's egregious. The discussion about the current model for busing in my section of the city is one I certainly wish to continue in good faith, so I'm just going to take this opportunity to remind our Director of Attendance, Enrollment, and Health Services that attendance matters, as does the accuracy of attendance data. I'm not a baby on the bus going wham, 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 nor is she a mama on the bus, so she shouldn't be telling anyone to shush, shush, shush. Accurate attendance data absolutely matters all through the town. Thank you.
Speaker number 2, it's your turn at the podium. Please state your name and city of residence before you begin.
Hello, my name is Danny Keys. I've reached out to Ms. Edwards already previously to being here, and she was kind enough to inform me that I would have the opportunity today to speak. So I'm a little bit unprepared, but I have been going about trying to climb the ladder, so to speak, as far as finding the right people and who to speak to. This is my daughter, Skylar. She's currently enrolled with Chittum Elementary. We are a military family and will be temporarily here for the next 2 years. My husband is a United States Marine. So he actually attended Chittum Elementary as a child as well. So we specifically chose this location for both of our daughters, I have one younger, to both attend Chittum. However, with where her birthday does fall, she would not be able to start kindergarten this upcoming fall because her birthday is October the 16th. And I've been told by a couple people now that she must be 5 on or before September 30th. She has been in the class, and I think it's really brought out the best in her. Her teachers have also given me a green light to move forward with just seeing what my options are and seeing who I can get in front of to see if she would possibly be accepted to start early in kindergarten this fall. But I'm just not really sure elsewhere to go. I'm not the best public speaker, but again, I really appreciate you all letting me have this opportunity to speak with you. Made a couple of emails here and there, but thank you.
Come on. This concludes our speakers for this evening.
Just say thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for sharing your comments. Our practice is to receive information. However, we do not usually engage in dialogue, and that is our intent tonight. If appropriate and not already provided, someone from the superintendent's staff will evaluate your concern and provide a response. We will now move on to consider the consent agenda. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Moved by Ms. Scott. Is there a second? Seconded by Mr. McCormick. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Dr. Smith.
Motion carries with all board members present voting yes.
We will now move on to the information agenda. The only item this evening is the superintendent's proposed budgets. Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. I am excited to share with you the proposed operating budget for the 25-26 school year. I'll begin by providing a broad overview of our budget priorities and the budget development process. Following that, I'll invite Mrs. Melissa Glod to review the latest budget assumptions, discuss insights into the state budget, and provide a comprehensive review of our budget details, which she enjoys sharing so much. Then we will review the recommendations for the use of one-time funds and discuss our upcoming meeting schedule, outlining the next steps in our process. I'd like to emphasize that every budget priority I'll be discussing tonight is in alignment with the 4 goals outlined in our strategic plan, Empower 2025. However, tonight I will be highlighting just the first 3 goals, which will be directly impacting this budget proposal presented this evening. Goal 1 aims to provide exemplary teaching and learning experiences, and I'm pleased to share that we have successfully increased staffing in our schools with this budget proposal to better address the needs of our students. This expansion includes the addition of 14 English learner, or EL, teachers, a teacher to support special education and homebound students, and 5 additional general classroom teachers. We are also committed to ensuring that our most vulnerable students continue to receive the same level of support required for these students to be successful by transferring 40 special education positions to the operating budget. In addition, we have added one career and technical education teacher to the operating budget. The carryover for Title VI-B has declined in recent years, and it can no longer sustain the positions it once did. And additionally, the Claude Moore grant, which supports CTE, is set to expire. So in order to keep these positions in our budget to serve our students, we have to move those over to the operating budget. We are also expanding our work-based learning coordinators' contracts from 190 days to 200 days to allow these staff members additional days to support our students seeking internships and career opportunities. And in order to further support our students' experiences at the middle school level, we are adding full-time student activities coordinators at the middle schools to support the expansion of athletics and activities at that level, not just athletics, but also activities. These new positions will replace the supplement provided to middle school teachers who took on this as an additional responsibility in the past. At select high schools, we're also piloting a VHSL esports program with the goal to continue to enhance opportunities available to our students. Goal 2 is centered on recruiting, retaining, and supporting our valued employees. I'm happy to announce that due to the increase in state and local revenues, CPS will be able to implement a 3% overall compensation increase for both teachers and unified scale staff. Furthermore, the starting salary for teachers will increase from $55,184 to $56,012, enhancing our competitiveness in the region. During the 24-25 school year, CPS ranked third in beginning teacher salaries among our 7 local school divisions. However, we maintained the top position for teacher salaries from year 5 and beyond. That's at all of those increments, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, and 30. Chesapeake held the top spot for teacher compensation, which we're proud of. The 3% compensation increase for the 25-26 fiscal year will allow CPS to continue providing competitive pay for our teachers and staff. Also under Goal 2, we are excited about the implementation of the new HR and payroll system called UKG. This scheduled upgrade for July of this year will enhance transparency, efficiency, and employee empowerment. We also plan to offer a master's degree supplement to qualified employees, including those who hold an applicable master's degree but are not currently receiving the supplement. Other highlights in this goal area include transitioning the Assistant Principal 1 position from the teacher scale to the unified scale. We will also provide teacher compensation adjustments to our Chesapeake Career Center positions that will better align compensation to relevant outside field experience. In addition, we are reclassifying part-time Medicaid clerk position to full-time, and several HVAC positions will be reclassified to enhance our competitiveness in the market so that we can fill those positions with highly qualified staff members. Under Goal 3, which focuses on providing a safe and supportive learning environment, the district is retaining the 14 elementary school resource deputies and the 1 supervisor that were initially funded in part by grant funds. In order to retain these important positions, we will have to move them to the operating budget, and we all know how important those positions are to our elementary students and staff. Additionally, we have extended support for our students with special health needs by hiring or proposing the hiring of extra clinic assistants where there is a recognized need. Finally, we are adding an enrollment technician to enhance enrollment support and hiring custodians to serve Crestwood and Grassfield elementary schools, and that's based on square footage, and which is a formula that we use. As we move forward, I would like to provide an overview of the budget development process. We began the budget development process in September by collecting funding requests from departments that support their programs and initiatives, as well as human resource requests from principals that exceed typical school staffing needs. This year, the Department of Communications Planning and Engagement designed and facilitated focus groups and conducted a survey to gather feedback from our key stakeholders, including students, teachers, principals, and community members. The team did an excellent job collecting and analyzing the feedback, which we use to help prioritize budget requests in alignment with our strategic plan. In November and December, the Budget Office was busy reviewing these requests with leadership staff. We used this information to assist in projecting revenue and updating the salary module. In January, my cabinet and I conducted several meetings to review and prioritize the budget requests based on the strategic plan and stakeholder feedback as guiding principles. We worked to balance the budget requests against the available projected revenues. At this time, I will happily pass it to Melissa Glod, Chief Financial Officer. She will provide an in-depth review of the budget and the numbers behind our anticipated revenue and expenditures. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton, and good evening to Chair Swigert, Vice Chair Scott, and the members of the school board. I'm excited to present the key components of the fiscal year 2025-2026 budget to you and Chesapeake citizens this evening. A digital copy of the proposed budget will be available tomorrow at 8 a.m. on the CPS website under the Department of Budget and Finance. Let's begin with our budget assumptions. The first item on our list is average daily membership. ADM is calculated by dividing the total number of days each student is enrolled in the school division by the number of days that the school division is in session. This figure is essential for determining state aid. For fiscal year 2025-2026, we project an increase in ADM to 39,900, representing an additional 448 students compared to the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget. Next on our budget is based on the Governor's amended biennial budget, released on December 18th. The Governor's amended biennial budget is subject to approval by the General Assembly. Since its release, Virginia's House of Delegates and Senate have been busy reviewing and making amendments to the Governor Youngkin's budget, and last week marked the crossover where the two chambers passed their proposed amendments to the other chamber for further consideration. Our budget office is reviewing their amendments' impact on the proposed budget presented tonight, which we will share at the next board meeting. The General Assembly's short session will end on February 22nd. At that time, the hope is they will have reached a consensus on their budget amendments and will have an updated budget for the governor's consideration. Now, let's look at the proposed budget for fiscal year 25-26 and compare it to the current year's appropriations. The proposed budget is $813.4 million for fiscal year 25-26. This is a decrease of about $9 million, or 1.1% compared to the prior year budget. I'll highlight the drivers of change for each of these budgets in the following few slides. First up is the operating budget. Operating revenue is proposed at $669 million, an increase of about $25 million, or 3.9% compared to the fiscal year 24-25 budget. The governor's amended budget provides nearly $15.8 million of the overall revenue increase. This increase is primarily driven by growth in sales tax revenue, additional support for compensation, and the favorable impact of technical updates on programs such as special education and English learners. Federal revenues include aid for federally connected students, supplemental impact aid, and special education impact aid, all determined by the annual impact aid survey. They also include Medicaid reimbursements. For fiscal year 25-26, federal revenue is anticipated to increase by about $750,000. Local revenues, such as rent, recoveries, rebates, and tuition, are anticipated to be flat compared to the prior fiscal year. The city's contribution to schools increased by $8.4 million over the prior fiscal year budget. The city funds schools under the revenue sharing formula. The funding includes the state's required local effort based on local composite index and the local match necessary for optional incentive and lottery-funded programs the division elects to participate in. It also includes funding beyond the required local effort and required local match. The school division depends upon this additional funding to support programs and staffing that exceed the standards of quality. The fiscal year 25-26 budget is balanced, with funding sufficient to meet anticipated expenditures. Here we see how the additional $24.9 million in revenues is allocated by expenditure category. The most significant increases are in personnel, fringe, and purchase services, with an offset in other charges and capital outlay. Over the following few slides, I will review the changes in each category. Personnel and fringe costs are rising by almost $21.5 million, with the planned compensation increase being the most significant driver. The proposed budget also includes adding 42 new positions, transferring 41 positions previously funded by grants, and various HR initiatives. Health insurance costs for the 2026 fiscal year will increase by $5.5 million. As Dr. Cotton mentioned earlier, teachers and Unified Scale staff will receive a 3% compensation increase. This will help maintain competitive salaries compared to other local school divisions. Teachers will receive a 1.5% scale increase and a 1.5% step increase, totaling 3%. Teachers above the scale will also receive a 3% increase. The proposed starting salary for teachers will rise to $56,012. Support and administrative staff will similarly receive a 1.5% scale increase and a 1.5% step increase for a total increase of 3%. Staff members above the scale will also receive a 3% increase. Please note that new staff hired after January will not receive the adjustment, but will be placed on the new pay scale closest to their current pay. This slide provides an overview of the 42 new positions being added. On the left side, we have school-based positions. To meet the standards of quality requirements, we will add 14 teachers for English learners and 5 general education teachers. In addition, we'll have 1 dedicated teacher for special education and homebound support. The current middle school athletic director supplement will be replaced by 10 full-time student activity coordinators to oversee middle school activities and athletics. Furthermore, there will be 4 clinic assistants, 4 custodians, 1 administrative specialist, and 1 coordinator for English learners. We add 2 central office positions on the right side, an enrollment technician and a custodian. Also, Dr. Cotton previously outlined, we are facing a challenge with 41 grant-funded positions that cannot be sustained through their existing grants. We recognize these positions' crucial role in supporting our most vulnerable students. If we did not transition these over, we would lose these critical special education and CTE classroom positions. To maintain our commitment to these students, we are taking steps to transition these positions into the operating budget. This slide provides an overview of funding allocated for the specific HR initiatives. These initiatives include master's degree supplement for qualified staff who do not currently receive it, updates to the Assistant Principal 1 and Work-Based Learning Coordinator contracts, and adjustments to compensation for Career Center teachers based on field experience. Additional HR initiatives encompass a stipend for high school esports sponsors, converting the Medicaid coordinator position from part-time to full-time, and reclassifying HVAC positions to enhance their market competitiveness. Now we will look at the details of the $5.5 million increase in health and dental expenditures. As you recall, when planning healthcare costs for the fiscal year, we have to look at the 2025 and 2026 plan years because plan years are based on calendar years. For fiscal year 25-26, we used the 2025 and 2026 healthcare cost projections. Recent history shows that costs for plan year 2024 were 11% higher than those for the 2023 plan year. Healthcare expenditures are expected to continue rising, though at a slower pace. Therefore, we use budgeted trends of 7.8% for 2025 and 7% for 2026. The self-insurance fund will allocate $4.7 million for the plan year 2025 and $4.2 million for the plan year 2026. In this spring, we'll have access to more data for the plan year 2025 and will reassess our trend assumptions accordingly. Expenditures in purchase services are expected to increase by $7.6 million from the fiscal year 24-25 budget. This growth is mainly due to adjusting the funding for transportation services for special needs and homeless students to match actual costs. Additionally, expenses related to technology service are rising because of various software renewals and the implementation of UKG, a project previously funded through the Capital Improvement Plan. Furthermore, increased purchase services expenditures are influenced by higher costs associated with contracted maintenance, repairs, and other services. Plans are also in place to fund elementary school resource deputies fully without depending on a security grant. The accompanying table illustrates that several offsetting savings balance these increases. Other charges are expected to decrease by approximately $5.2 million compared to last year's budget. This decline is primarily due to removing a placeholder for at-risk funding received in the previous year's final state budget. This funding is now designated to support transportation costs for special needs and homeless children and cover expenditures related to English learner services that exceed the funding provided by the state. It also will help support the Elementary Resource Deputy Program. The decrease in travel expenses reflects an effort to align travel funding with the historical cost. However, these reductions are partially offset by increases in utilities and insurance costs. The budget for materials and supplies is expected to increase by $2.7 million. This rise is mainly due to funding allocated for a replacement program for employee devices and laptops, adjustments to building repairs and custodial supplies based on historical costs, and materials for esports pilot programs. The proposed capital outlay will decrease by $1.9 million. This reduction is mainly due to the recommendation that new and replacement portable buildings be funded with one-time funds and the payoff of 2 leases within the current fiscal year. Additionally, the reduction in utility vans reflect a one-time purchase in the current fiscal year, and the lease for bus replacement has been shifted to the cell tower fund. Overall, grant revenue is decreasing by $29 million, primarily due to the expiration of federal pandemic grants and the spend down of the state's all-in grants. This slide presents an overview of the changes in special funds. Notably, the athletic fund is decreasing by $9.6 million due to including one-time purchases in fiscal year 2025. The proposed budget for the athletic fund is consistent with the budgets from recent prior years. The cell tower fund has been adjusted by $3.4 million to align with historical fund actuals. The school nutrition fund is increasing because of the planned compensation increase and the recent reorganization approved by the school board in December. The self-insurance fund is also growing to support the anticipated rise in health care costs. The superintendent's proposed budget book includes a detailed listing of all fees. These fees are reviewed to consider all programs and their rising costs. Fee updates will be made during the budget process, and the revised fees will be presented to the board for final approval. I want to highlight a slight change in school meal prices as this fee will affect most students. The cost of school breakfast will increase by 10 cents, bringing it to $1.70, and the price of school lunch will also increase by 10 cents, totaling $3.20. Please note that these fees are subject to change based on state and federal guidelines. Now I'll turn it back over to Dr. Cotton. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Glad. I do plan to bring forward, in addition to this budget, a proposal to utilize one-time funds to address several projects. Even though this is outside the budget, we do like to bring these forward each year to share our priorities. These include requests for turf fields and resurfaced tracks at a couple of our schools, additional security vestibules, and a school bus routing solution. We will talk in more detail about these items when we bring forward the appropriation requests in March, but you'll see on the slide the list of items that I'll be bringing forward at the appropriate time. I want to call your attention to the pay schedule transition supplement that's listed here on this slide. As you know, we discussed this item during our last work session. This will accommodate the migration to the new Human Capital Resource Management System, UKG. We are confident that this change will increase transparency, efficiency, and employee empowerment moving forward. Finally, I just want to remind everyone that we still have several unmet capital needs that the revenue sharing formula does not address. Here are just a few examples. Given our focus on safety within our schools, it is imperative to allocate funds specifically for security vestibules in the remaining elementary schools. Securing funding for a new facility to accommodate our Chesapeake Career Center has been a top priority, and investing in this new building that aligns seamlessly with our commitment to providing an advanced learning environment for students pursuing career-focused education. It is also time to begin the replacement for Carver Intermediate, which is currently not funded. Projects, additional projects, athletic facilities, and modernization initiatives remain inadequately funded within the constraints of the current lockbox or revenue sharing formula. Addressing these infrastructure needs will be vital to sustaining the functionality and efficiency of our educational facilities. Looking ahead at our next board meeting, we will hold a public hearing and hopefully provide an update from the General Assembly. Then at our first meeting in March, we will hold our second public hearing and request final action on the proposed budgets and the use of these one-time funds. Finally, on May 19th, if necessary, we will balance to council budget appropriation and any changes to state and city revenues and ask for board final reconciliation and adoption of the budget at that time, if everything goes the way that it should. Thank you for your time this evening. Mrs. Glad and I are happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mr. Lamonia?
Hey, Mrs. Glad, thank you so much for, I know it's an undertaking to put the budget together every year, so I just want to say in advance, I appreciate your efforts. And I just wanted to say, and I know that we have a lot of questions and input as this process goes, so, I appreciate all the considerations and the good conversation from you all and everybody, obviously, on the board. But the one thing I wanted to call out specifically is I was very proud to see the inclusion in this proposed budget of the student activities coordinators. We've had a lot of folks, right, in our middle schools that have gone above and beyond for many years, especially as we've added sports to our middle schools, additional sports, soccer, baseball, et cetera, right? And there's, the undertaking by them, and I just want to give them a shout out, for all the work they've done in the middle schools for the last X amount of years. So I was very proud to see the student activities coordinators position, the 10 of them that you're looking in this proposed budget to add in. And also the turf fields and the tracks, right? So there's been a clamoring for that. I know you know, and Dr. Cotton knows, I've been very vocal about that too for the last X amount of years. So I'm happy to see that, and I know we've had some, creative discussions on ways to even enhance that further, and I look forward to having those additional conversations as we move forward too. So thanks for the work. Just wanted to call out those couple things and the dedication to, and increasing the athletic programs and the activities that our schools have. Thanks.
Thank you.
I believe I don't see any additional questions at this time. I know we look forward to feedback during the public hearing, work sessions that we'll have coming up as well. So thank you, Ms. Glide.
Thank you.
There being no items on the action agenda this evening, we will move on to the superintendent's report. Back over to you, Dr. Cotton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just have one calendar reminder, as if I need to remind folks, but Monday, February 17th is President's Day. Schools and offices will be closed on that day. With that, thank you again for the opportunity to spotlight the great things going on in our schools and in our community. This month has already been full of some exciting celebrations and initiatives that I'm so proud to share with you this evening. First up, I'd like to shine the spotlight on Great Bridge High School as they recently hosted an exciting faculty reunion for current and former employees by former employees. We're talking about employees who started in the 1960s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. Founded in 1907, Great Bridge High School predates the city of Chesapeake itself. Back then, we were part of Norfolk County, and if you were wondering, I was not there at that time, so just want to put that out there. And Great Bridge was the very first school established here. That's a rich history spanning 118 years. It was awesome to see so many employees reunite with former colleagues and friends, but it was even cooler to see the former Wildcats raise nearly $3,000 for the school's general fund. Thank you to all of those who made this event possible and for all of the former Wildcats who played such a big part in giving back to the school. Another special event took place on January 27th at Grassfield High School. I was proud to be there to officially dedicate their library in memory of former media specialist Dusty N. Gable. Mrs. Gable was Grassfield's media specialist from the school's inception in 2007 until 2022. Dusty was beloved by students and staff, and her passion for reading and learning touched countless lives. The dedication of the Dusty N. Gable Library allows her contributions and passion to live on, continuing to inspire future generations of learners. Thank you to Grassfield High School, Principal Hunberry, and the FACE team for all their efforts in recognizing Mrs. Gable's impact. The teachers for tomorrow, students at Western Branch High School, are preparing to make their impact as teachers as they recently took a field trip to Old Dominion University for the Next Gen Educators event. The event allowed students to get a unique look at the education programs that the university has to offer. The Bruins were able to interact with current students and staff, attend information sessions, and take a tour through campus. Thank you to ODU for allowing our students the opportunity to get insight on their potential futures, and even bigger thank you to the Western Branch High School for going above and beyond to educate and guide our future teachers. Butts Road Primary is also taking education to the next level as they tie the Chinese New Year into their science, technology, reading, and engineering, art, and math activities. Families and students got to participate in the stream night with a festive Lunar New Year twist. From fireworks in a jar, glow-in-the-dark coloring, and even coding bots, the school was packed with discovery and fun as they celebrated the Year of the Snake. Thank you to the staff at Butts Road Primary for finding new and creative ways to engage our students, families, and the community. Finally, last week I was proud to host this year's second Superintendent's Community Engagement Council meeting. District, school, and community leaders came together at Greenbrier Country Club to discuss and share ideas on important topics such as state accreditation and the Virginia Literacy Act. I'm grateful for the ongoing collaboration between our school district and the community, and thankful for their continuing support. Special thanks to Victoria L. Prophet, the City of Chesapeake's Commissioner of the Revenue Office, for providing the blessing, and to Train for sponsoring the event. Madam Chair and members of the board, this completes my spotlight for this evening.
Thank you, Dr. Cotton. Last on our agenda this evening is board member items. Does any board member have an item to bring before the group? Seeing none, I will add that we certainly want to wish a very happy birthday to a few members of our cabinet who celebrated recently. We want to wish a happy birthday to Ms. Glod, to Dr. Jeff Faust, and Ms. Diane Edwards. We hope that you all had a wonderful recent birthday. We appreciate you, and with that, I will call this meeting adjourned.